Yo, Fila today, baby. I'm taking it back to 87. But I just want to make a small statement concerning American cultural bias and arrogance. Generally speaking, most Americans are very arrogant, and this goes across ethnic lines, this goes across racial lines, this goes across basically all forms of identity, because Americans are Americans. American isn't a race, American isn't an ethnic group, American is an idea, it's a concept. If you grew up in this particular country, under these particular cultural structures and constructs, you're an American, no matter your ethnic group, your racial identity. And typically, growing up in America will make you very ignorant and oblivious to the rest of the world. The fact that you have a toilet is probably something that you take for granted. It's something that you don't even think about. If you live in an apartment complex and you pay rent to the apartment complex, if something breaks down in your apartment, your toilet, your air conditioning, your sink clogs up, you call the maintenance department and they come fix it within a couple of days, a couple of hours, whatever. In India right now, the government is having a hard time just making sure that their population has toilets. They've been dealing with this issue for a very long time. A lot of people, millions of people, use the bathroom, defecate outdoors in what they call latrines. And that's okay if you're at war, if you're in the field as a military unit and you have to dig holes in the ground and create your own kind of toilets, but it's not okay when you live in a society where the government is making billions of dollars. So the average American wouldn't even think twice about having a toilet. They'll think, well, hey, I mean, everybody has a toilet, right? No, everybody doesn't have a toilet. Everybody isn't entitled to a toilet. Everybody doesn't have the privilege of having plumbing. Millions and millions and millions of people, especially in India, all across the world, are living without plumbing and without toilets. And they look at Americans and they shake their head because that's a fact that somehow slips by us, you know? I always hear people who comment on young black boys who get involved in the street culture, get involved in gang life, and they say, well, they didn't have any other choice. And I say, okay, they didn't have any other choice. What about in Uganda? Joseph Kony, he would invade your village, kidnap all the kids, the boys and the girls. The girls would be wives, they would be sex slaves to the soldiers, and the little boys would be forced to fight for his rebel army. You know, occasionally, after being in Joseph Kony's army for a couple of years, you may have an opportunity to escape one day. But 9 times out of 10, that's not going to happen, because if you even go use the bathroom in the woods or in the forest, somebody's going to accompany you because they know that you might try to escape because they stole you from your family. So I can look at that little boy who's in Joseph Kony's LRA army and say, well, he didn't have a choice. He was literally kidnapped from his village on an average day by a warlord who's so desperate for soldiers that he's literally going into these various communities, stealing little boys. And after 10, 15 years of being with him, you get to a point where you actually adapt to it. And when you do go back home, when you do find your way back to freedom, back to your home, it's odd, because you only spent a couple years there as a boy. You spent the majority of your life in Joseph Kony's army, traveling through the jungle, deep in the bush, hunting for food, doing raids, guerrilla tactics. That little boy didn't have a choice. A little boy who grew up in America, who was promised an education, promised medicinal, he was given a good medicinal assistance. You know, if you get hurt, you can go to the hospital. Even if you don't have insurance, the doctors will make sure to help you out. You'll get slapped with a bill, but in America, doctors are obligated to provide help. They actually take an oath that forces them not to ever turn away anybody who needs assistance medically. In Haiti, like, I don't know if I said this already or not, but Haiti, they can't even offer waste management services. So in my apartment complex, the residents get mad when our dumpsters fill up. Sometimes people from outside the apartment complex come and they dump trash because we have a bunch of dumpsters in our big apartment complex. And whenever it gets to a point where it's full, we get mad. We call the trash companies, and they come get the trash. Well, in Haiti, the government is having a hard time performing waste management because they don't have the funds to do it. So the residents have to gather their trash and burn it, which is very bad because of the pollution. But in America, we don't think about that. We don't ever sit back and actually think, what if our local government, our federal government, our state government couldn't afford to actually perform waste management? What would we do? You know, we take it for granted that we just put our trash out on a curb or in a dumpster and somebody's going to get it. And if they don't get it, we get upset about it because we're accustomed to that service being provided. Our tax dollars go to the government for that to be provided for us. But you got some governments that don't even want taxes from their citizens. They're called rentier states. These are states that typically have very wealthy natural resources like oil, diamonds, gold, or the various minerals and elements that are needed for technology to create circuit boards and chips and stuff like that. What these governments do is they gain 99% of their government budget, meaning 99% of the money that 100% of the money that their government receives is from renting out access to their resources. So if I'm a country that's a rentier state, say I have oil in my country, I'll rent out a certain number of barrels to America, France. They can bring their oil companies here, drill, and they pay me billions of dollars per month to rent these, barrels of oil every month. Every month you pay me $50 billion. Every month you pay me $100 billion. All right, you guys can bring your companies here and do what you do. Just pay me. And the governments take this money. They don't give it back to the people. They don't invest in society. They don't invest in social development, human development. They don't invest in hospitals, education. They actually keep that money, and that's corruption. They use that money to enrich themselves. They don't have time to think about how that money can help their own people in their poor countries because they got to figure out ways to launder the money into America, France, the Bahamas, and make these financial transactions seem legitimate. So they're spending all their time laundering money. They don't have time to think about that. But in America, we pay taxes. So our government has to show and prove. They actually have to listen to us, and they actually have to do things that are in our best interest because our money is what funds our government. People like to say America is corrupt, and yes, corruption does exist on an individual basis, but as far as the system is not corrupt. You have certain people that can use the system and be corrupt around it, or use the system to promote corruption, because there's loopholes and various things that you can actually take advantage of within the system that aids corruption. But for the most part, we don't have a government that's a rentier state. We don't have a government that's selling, because America's the number one seller of oil in the whole world. We don't have a government that's selling all this oil all around the world, taking that money and saying, you know what, to hell with the citizens, I don't want your taxes. We make enough money from selling oil and selling natural resources. All right, so America is number one in selling. Our number one exports are pharmaceuticals, oil, circuit boards, cattle, like beef, food products, technology. So say, for example, if our country was only interested in making the corporations happy, and they didn't want our tax money, they just worked on behalf of these companies that provide the government with income, and they said, we get all our money from the companies, to hell with the regular people, we don't even want your taxes, go do what you do, survive on your own, we'd be in big trouble. And a lot of countries are like that. Equatorial Guinea, for example, some people joke and call it dictatorial Guinea. They've had a government in place with a leader who's been in charge for 50 plus years or whatever, and his entire tribe is in control of all the government positions. So when they die, another family member takes their spot. So there's no chance for the regular population to actually have their voices heard or even be represented in government, because the corruption is so deep that when one person dies, there's like a hierarchy, a succession thing already in place to keep that corrupt system alive. One tribe runs the entire government of that country. Nobody can run. Nobody can become a senator, nobody can become a governor, nobody can become a president, nobody can get on this local city council. All those positions are taken up by this one particular tribe. And this one tribe is literally looting this entire country, and this entire country only exists to enrich this one tribe. And they don't care about their economy, they don't care about their people, they don't get taxes from their people. The real economy, the people who actually live there, the regular people, survive on agriculture, 50 cents to $1 a day. They don't have a choice. So next time you hear somebody say, oh, he didn't have a choice, tell them to do some research on the world at large. Because as Americans, we always tend to forget that although this country isn't perfect, we have the right to actually say that and actually do something about it to make it more perfect. In other countries like China, if you go on the internet and say something controversial, you're going to have a knock on your door that night, and you're going to end up in a re-education camp. We don't go through that here. So please, realize that you're blessed. Even living in the projects and getting welfare is living like royalty. There are countries where people literally live on 50 cents per day.